Michael, we've become numb to it, but Trump's made history again in the worst way.
Right. More than in the worst way, I think probably in about 20 ways. You know, if any of us is numb to this, and I think we're probably not, but in case we are, imagine that this was Dwight Eisenhower or Harry Truman in court, falling asleep and being accused of what he's being accused of and behaving the way he has been. This is something the founders did not exactly have in mind for a future president. They thought that they had created a system that would exclude people that be likely to be at least accused of criminal conduct, although, of course, we don't know whether he's going to be found guilty or not. And the other thing is, you remember the guy, and I think it was a male, I don't want to assume that, but the person in the Trump entourage who said, you know, it'll be great, he can campaign from the courtroom. This can be a plus. Well, that's a classic example of turning lemons into lemonade and doesn't seem to be happening. This guy is on display 8 hours a day during this trial. And just as you said, Jonathan, it doesn't exactly suggest that he's fit and ready to be president in almost any other respect. And the other thing I'll close with this is someone who can't stand being out of control. Well, you know, what less control is there than being in a courtroom with a jury and a judge that is going to rule on your fate and potentially even put you in jail? It's going to drive him crazy. This is the opposite of campaigning and winning votes.
You know, Jen, Trump claims his trial is firing up his base, but is it actually helping him to be sleeping in court while Biden is out campaigning on real issues?
I think not. You know, Donald Trump wants to be the big man. He wants to be in charge, as Michael said. But every day he is diminished. There was a point at the trial today where he stood up like he was going to leave the courtroom before the judge did. And he said, "Sit down, Mr. Trump." And like a sheepish little child, he had to sit down again. And that just kind of sums up where he is. He can pout, he can fall asleep, whether that's an intentional snub at the proceedings or not. He can try to mumble and smirk at the jury. He can try to disregard the judge's orders. But ultimately, he's not allowed to do these things. And he will be called out and he will have to sit there. Donald Trump is not one to control himself. So when people like Michael Cohen, like Hope Hicks get on the stand and they start testifying against him, I find it hard to believe he's simply going to sit there. I suspect he's going to start mumbling. He's going to start muttering. He's going to start gesticulating. And that's going to get him in trouble, too. So everything that he does, because he's Donald Trump, is not likely to endure to his benefit in the courtroom. And let's remember, whose base is his base? They only get one vote. And those people will probably not be swayed by anything that happens in the courtroom and anything that he says on the courtroom steps. But he's got to get a majority. And as you pointed out, at his peak, he got 46%. And he is not making friends. He is not impressing people outside. And meanwhile, Joe Biden is not only campaigning, but he's getting a little feisty. He is getting in his digs. He's noting these things like he's sleepy. He's noting that Trump is otherwise occupied, as he put it on one occasion this week. So I think the Biden campaign realizes they've got this guy trapped. He's cornered, and they're going to keep sticking it to him and giving him little jabs. And that, too, is going to weigh on Trump because he can't stand being mocked.
Yeah, he really hates it. But you know what, Michael, Politico reports that Congressman Benny Thompson, the former chair of the January 6th committee, introduced a bill to remove Secret Service protection for anyone sentenced to a year or more in jail, saying it would, quote, alleviate a conflict between the Secret Service's mission and prison officials tasked with the protection of inmates. I hear you chuckling, so finish the thought. What do you think about this?
You know, I got into this career decades ago. Of all the things I thought I would have to think about, you know, the idea of, you know, a fist fight between officers of the Secret Service and the Bureau of Prisons at, you know, Lorton or some federal prison somewhere is not something that I had exactly on my bingo card. But, you know, the other thing, and I want to endorse what Jennifer just said, You know, the other thing that shows so much in this scene, and actually in the last number of months, in 2016, that was in many ways a diabolical campaign. Donald Trump stood for some horrible things, but relative to now, he was fairly well disciplined. And this year, he is much more about making himself feel better for the next 60 seconds than running a disciplined campaign for president with a winning message. I think that to tell people in advance that if they elect you, he wants to take away their rights, be a dictator for a day, pit the Justice Department and the Defense Department against his enemies, and possibly take us out of NATO and let Putin run wild through Europe. My guess is that that's not a disciplined winning message. It's much more about his psychiatry. So I almost feel that we should applaud Donald Trump for his transparency. But if Americans understand that this is a choice between our system of more than 2 centuries of democracy versus a lethal dictatorship, I just don't see a majority of Americans voting for that.
You know, Jen, we have seen over time how the presidency ages men, only because it's only been men up until this point. But how do you see Trump's post-presidency legal and financial issues weighing on him?
I think he is truly exhausted. He's not a disciplined person. And to have to sit there and listen, and we already know he doesn't sleep well. We already know that in the Oval Office, he had executive time until about 11 o'clock in the morning. I think this is a physical as well as a mental and emotional strain on him. And you can tell he does look tired. He does look diminished. And let's face it, even before this trial, he was not doing what President Biden is doing. President Biden was out 3 days in a row campaigning. He gives speeches constantly. He meets with voters. He's conducting the country's business. Donald Trump does not have that kind of energy, does not have that kind of, frankly, money to put together a real campaign. So in a sense, this is all he has. What else is he going to do? It's not like he's going to go into a swing state and give speech after speech on the issues. That's not what he's capable of. So I think that this is really showing the limits of his physical capacity as well as his mental and emotional capacity. And by the way, to Benny Thompson, I think the Bureau of Prisons will easily accommodate the Secret Service. I am sure they could find a place.
I want to see the fist fight.
Hey everyone, MSNBC has a new and improved app. You'll get real-time alerts and analysis, live blogs, in-depth essays, video highlights, and the best 2024 election coverage. Download the new MSNBC app. Here's how to do it. You tap on the App Store on your phone. You hit search on the bottom right corner. You type in MSNBC. You click on the MSNBC app. You click on Get or the cloud icon and enjoy it.